Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something straight from the heart. Life has a way of pulling us in 1,000 directions. Everybody's got an opinion about who you should be, what you should do, and how you should live. But the truth is, if you want to see real change, if you want to step into the life you've been dreaming of, you've got to stop looking left and right and start looking in the mirror. The moment you begin to focus on yourself, everything else has a way of falling into place. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest challenges people face today is that they're so busy looking around at everyone else's life that they completely forget to live their own. We live in a world where comparison has become the thief of joy. Everywhere you look, somebody is posting their highlight reel, showing you the best moments, the brightest pictures, the most polished versions of their reality. And if you're not careful, you'll start to measure your worth against somebody else's snapshots. But the truth is, your journey is yours alone, and until you learn to honor that fact, you'll never walk in your full potential. God didn't create you to be a copy. He created you to be an original with your own gifts, your own talents, your own timing. When you look in the mirror, you're looking at somebody with a completely unique assignment on this earth. And no amount of comparing yourself to your neighbor will help you fulfill it. The problem with comparison is that it makes you blind to your blessings. When you're constantly focused on what somebody else has, you overlook what you've already been given. Somebody's celebrating their promotion, and instead of being inspired, you start feeling like you're behind. Somebody buys a new car, and suddenly your perfectly good car feels like it's not enough. Somebody posts a picture from their vacation, and suddenly you feel like your life is boring. You see how quickly comparison takes the joy out of living? It creates a cycle of dissatisfaction, and before you know it, you're living in competition with people who aren't even thinking about you. That's wasted energy. That's stolen focus. And that's not how you were designed to live. When you start to embrace your own path, you realize that your timing is different from anyone else's. Some people bloom early, some people bloom late, but the flower is still beautiful regardless of when it blooms. Just because somebody reached success at 25 doesn't mean you're behind if you reach it at 40. Just because somebody got married last year doesn't mean you're less valuable if you're still single today. The truth is, God's plan for your life doesn't look like anybody else's. And that's the beauty of it. The worst mistake you can make is to quit on your journey because it doesn't look like somebody else's timeline. You've got to trust the process that was designed specifically for you. Think about how much peace you would have if you stopped trying to keep up. Instead of scrolling and feeling jealous, you'd be working on your own vision. Instead of counting somebody else's blessings, you'd be counting your own. Instead of letting comparison rob you, you'd be letting focus build you. Energy flows where attention goes, and if your attention is always on what somebody else is doing, you're literally fueling their life instead of your own. Imagine what would happen if you redirected that same energy into your own growth. Imagine what kind of progress you could make if you weren't distracted by somebody else's story. That's the power of focus. That's the power of owning your own lane. Your uniqueness is your advantage. There's something you can do that nobody else can do in the way you do it. The way you speak, the way you create, the way you think, the way you solve problems. There's a fingerprint on your life that can't be duplicated. But when you're too busy copying, when you're too busy comparing, you water down that uniqueness. You lose the very thing that was meant to set you apart. So instead of chasing somebody else's dream, why not develop your own? Instead of wishing for their gift, why not nurture yours? Instead of doubting your journey, why not trust that every step you've taken has prepared you for what's coming next? That's when you begin to see progress. That's when you start to notice doors opening, opportunities coming, and people recognizing the value that only you bring. And let me tell you this, Nobody's life is as perfect as it looks. You might be comparing yourself to somebody else's smile, not knowing the struggle it's hiding. You might be jealous of their success, not knowing the nights they cried themselves to sleep. You might be wishing for their lifestyle, not realizing the sacrifices it took to get there. When you compare, you're comparing your behind the scenes to somebody else's front stage. That's never a fair comparison. So instead of wasting your time envying what you don't know, why not invest that time in building what you do know? Your own path, your own goals, your own future. Ladies and gentlemen, discipline is one of the hardest things to master because it requires you to go against your feelings. Feelings will tell you to stay in bed when the alarm goes off, to skip the workout because you're tired, to put off the work until tomorrow because today you don't feel like it. But discipline doesn't ask how you feel. Discipline asks what you want in the long run. If you want to change your life, if you want to achieve something greater, you cannot be a slave to your emotions. You've got to learn how to do the things you don't feel like doing in order to have the life you've always dreamed of having. That's what separates people who succeed from people who quit. When you build discipline, you build consistency, and consistency is what creates results. It's not about going to the gym one time and expecting to be in shape. It's about showing up over and over, even on the days when it feels like nothing is happening. It's not about writing one page and expecting to finish a book. It's about writing a little bit every single day until those pages stack up into a story. Success is not built on big dramatic moments. It's built on the small, quiet, repetitive choices that you make day after day. You don't see the change immediately, but one day you wake up and realize you're stronger, smarter, further along than you were before. And that's because discipline kept you moving when motivation ran out. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is the engine. Everybody can feel motivated for a few days, maybe a few weeks, but eventually that fire cools down. Life gets busy, obstacles show up, and that feeling of excitement fades away. If all you rely on is motivation, you'll quit the first time you don't feel like continuing. But discipline doesn't need you to be excited, it just needs you to be committed. Discipline is showing up to practice even when you're tired. Discipline is studying for the exam even when you'd rather watch TV. Discipline is working on your dream after a long day of work instead of giving up and saying you don't have the time. The truth is, you make time for what matters, and when you're disciplined, your actions show what truly matters to you. Discipline is also about sacrifice. You can't say yes to everything and still expect to reach the top. Sometimes discipline means saying no to hanging out so you can work on your goals. Sometimes it means turning off the distractions, putting the phone down and focusing on the task at hand. Sometimes it means spending your money wisely instead of wasting it on temporary pleasures. Sacrifice doesn't always feel good in the moment, but later you realize that giving up those small things made room for the big things you really wanted. Discipline teaches you that short-term pain often leads to long-term gain. What people often forget is that discipline creates freedom. At first it feels like restriction, but later it gives you choices other people don't have. The person who disciplined themselves to save money has the freedom to invest, to travel, to live without financial stress. The person who disciplined themselves to stay healthy has the freedom to live longer, to move easier, to enjoy life without being held back. The person who disciplined themselves to master their craft has the freedom to walk into opportunities because their skills speak for them. That's the power of discipline. It feels hard in the moment, but it pays dividends for the rest of your life. And discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent. You'll slip up, you'll miss a day, you'll make mistakes, but discipline is getting back on track without letting one setback turn into a spiral. Too many people quit because they messed up once. But discipline says one mistake doesn't erase all the progress you've made. Get back up, keep moving, and remind yourself why you started in the first place. That's how discipline builds resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, belief in yourself is the foundation of everything you will ever accomplish. Without it, talent doesn't matter, opportunities pass you by, and even the best laid out plans collapse because deep down, you don't think you're worthy of them. Too many people are waiting for someone else to validate them, to clap for them, to tell them they're good enough before they take action. But if you wait for the world to believe in you before you believe in yourself, you will wait for the rest of your life. The truth is, the world responds to the energy you put out. And if you walk around doubting yourself, people pick up on that and they treat you accordingly. But when you carry yourself with confidence, when you know your worth, even if nobody else recognizes it yet, you set the standard for how others will treat you. Self-belief is not arrogance, it's awareness. It's knowing that you've been given something special, that your gifts and your talents have value, and that you don't have to shrink to make other people comfortable. When you believe in yourself, you stop begging for permission to live the life you want, and you start giving yourself that permission. You stop waiting for a seat at the table, and you build your own table if you have to. Self-belief turns rejection into redirection, because instead of seeing a no as the end, you see it as a sign to keep pushing until the right door opens. The dangerous thing about lacking belief in yourself is that it makes you settle. You start accepting less than you deserve because you don't think you're capable of more. You stay in jobs that drain you, in relationships that don't respect you, in environments that limit you, because deep down you've convinced yourself that's all you can get. But the moment you decide that you are worthy of more, that your life has purpose, that your dreams are not too big, something shifts inside of you. You start moving differently, speaking differently, carrying yourself differently, and that change attracts opportunities that once seemed out of reach. Belief also fuels persistence. There will be setbacks, failures, and disappointments along the way. But when you believe in yourself, you see those obstacles as temporary instead of permanent. You don't give up after one failure because you know failure is part of the process. You don't stop after one closed door because you believe another one will open. Belief gives you the resilience to keep moving forward when everything around you tells you to quit. The people who make it are always the most talented or the most educated, but they're the ones who refuse to stop believing in themselves when others did. Self-belief also changes the way you talk to yourself. Instead of saying, I can't do this or I'm not enough, you start saying, I can figure this out and I am enough. Your words shape your mindset and your mindset shapes your actions. If your inner voice is full of doubt, your actions will reflect hesitation. But if your inner voice is full of belief, your actions will reflect confidence. The way you speak to yourself in private matters just as much, if not more, than the way you present yourself in public. And here's the truth. Nobody else can do this part for you. People can encourage you, they can cheer you on, but if you don't believe in yourself, their words won't stick. You'll hear them, but you won't receive them. It has to come from within. You have to look in the mirror and decide that no matter where you came from, no matter what mistakes you've made, no matter how many times you failed, you are still capable of greatness. Once you make that decision, everything else in your life begins to align with that belief. Ladies and gentlemen, patience is one of the greatest strengths you can develop if you want to see real transformation in your life. We live in a world that teaches us to want everything fast, to want results instantly, to believe that if it doesn't happen right away, it's not working. But success doesn't operate on that timeline. Growth doesn't come overnight. It comes in seasons, it comes in layers, and it comes through the quiet, unseen work that takes time to reveal itself. The seed you plant today doesn't become a tree tomorrow. It has to go through a process of breaking, rooting, and pushing through the soil before it ever sees the sunlight. The same is true for your dreams. You can't expect to skip the process and still expect a reward. Patience is the discipline of trust. It means believing that even when you don't see the results yet, the work you're putting in is not wasted. Too often people quit too soon because they're looking for quick validation. They go to the gym for a week, don't see abs in the mirror, and decide it doesn't work. They work on their business for a few months, don't become rich, and give up. They pray for a blessing, and when it doesn't show up right away, they think God has forgotten them. Well, what they don't realize is that sometimes the delay is part of the preparation. Patience is not about waiting around doing nothing. It's about continuing to work, continuing to trust, continuing to believe, even when the timeline is longer than you expect. The beauty of patience is that it builds character. When you're forced to wait, you learn to value what you receive. You don't take the reward lightly because you know what it cost you. You know the effort, the sacrifices, the long nights, and the doubts you had to push through. If everything came easy, you would never appreciate it. Struggle makes the victory sweeter. And patience is what allows you to endure the struggle without giving up. Another truth about patience is that it protects you from things that aren't ready for you yet. Sometimes you think you're ready, but the reality is you still need more growth, more wisdom, more experience. If the blessing came too soon, you wouldn't be able to handle it. Imagine being given the responsibility of something huge before you've developed the discipline to manage it. You lose it as fast as you got it. Patience ensures that when the opportunity comes, you are prepared for it. It's not denial, it's development. What feels like waiting is often shaping you into the person you need to be to sustain the success you're asking for. Patience also keeps you from rushing into the wrong thing. When you're desperate for quick results, you start cutting corners. You start taking shortcuts that might get you there faster, but won't let you stay there. You might settle for the wrong relationship because you're tired of being alone, or take the wrong job because you're tired of struggling, or make a reckless decision because you don't want to wait for the right one. Patience gives you the wisdom to say, I'd rather wait for what's meant for me than force what isn't. And when you wait, you discover that the right things have a way of lasting longer because they were aligned with your purpose from the start. Patience is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's easy to rush. It's easy to panic. It's easy to give up when things don't happen quickly. But it takes real strength to stand firm and keep moving forward without losing your faith. When you master patience, you don't get shaken by delays. You don't get discouraged by the other people's timelines. You don't feel pressured by the world's pace. So you move with your own rhythm, knowing that what's meant for you will not miss you. And what's not meant for you will not stay, no matter how fast you try to chase it. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most important parts of focusing on yourself is learning how to set boundaries. Too many people are living exhausted, drained, and overwhelmed, not because they don't have the ability to succeed, but because they're giving away their energy to everybody else without saving any for themselves. You cannot be everything to everyone and still expect to have enough left over to build the life you want. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're selfish. It means you value yourself enough to protect your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. The truth is, if you don't set boundaries, people will take as much as you allow them to. Not because they're always trying to hurt you, but because people get used to what you tolerate. If you always say yes when you want to say no, they'll assume you're fine with it. If you always make yourself available, no matter how tired you are, they'll expect you to keep doing it. And slowly, without even realizing it, you'll start living a life built around other people's expectations instead of your own purpose. Boundaries are how you take back control and remind yourself that your needs, your goals, and your well-being matter too. Saying no is one of the most powerful tools you can learn. A lot of us struggle with it because we're afraid of disappointing people, afraid of being judged, or afraid of losing relationships. But the reality is, the people who truly respect you will respect your no. And the ones who don't respect your no were only interested in what they could get from you, not in who you really are. Every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to something that does. You're saying yes to rest, yes to focus, yes to your own growth, yes to your dreams. Boundaries help you stop being spread thin and start being intentional about where your energy goes. Boundaries also protect your vision. When you're working on something big, not everybody's opinion belongs in your space. Some people will project their fears onto you. Some will doubt you, and some will discourage you because they can't see what you see. If you don't guard your vision, you'll find yourself shrinking it to fit their limited perspective. Sometimes protecting your boundaries means limiting conversations with certain people. Sometimes it means cutting off negativity, and sometimes it means creating distance from those who constantly drain you. That doesn't make you cruel. It makes you wise enough to realize that the company you keep affects the direction you go. What's powerful about boundaries is that they not only protect you from harm, they also attract the right people. When you carry yourself like someone who values their time and energy, people start treating you with more respect. When you're clear about what you will and won't accept, you stop entertaining relationships that take from you without giving anything back. You begin surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, inspire you, and match your energy. Boundaries create space for healthier connections, because when people know your limits, they know how to honor them. And boundaries aren't just about people, they're about habits too. You need boundaries with your own distractions, boundaries with how much time you waste, boundaries with the thoughts you let live in your mind. Sometimes a person draining your energy isn't someone else. It's you scrolling endlessly, procrastinating, or letting negativity run wild in your head. Discipline and boundaries work hand in hand because both require you to be intentional about what you allow and what you refuse. When you combine them, you create a structure around your life that keeps you moving in the direction of your goals instead of drifting wherever the world tries to push you. Ladies and gentlemen, gratitude is one of the most powerful shifts you can make when it comes to focusing on yourself and building the life you want. Too often we get caught up in chasing the next thing, the bigger house, the better job, the higher income, the recognition we feel we deserve. And while there's nothing wrong with ambition, the danger comes when you overlook what you already have. Gratitude has the power to transform your perspective because it reminds you that even while you're reaching for more, you are already standing on blessings that others are still praying for. The roof over your head, the food on your table, the people in your life who love you, the opportunities you've already experienced. When you take time to recognize those things, you stop living in a state of lack and start living in a state of abundance. Gratitude shifts your mindset from focusing on what's missing to appreciating what's present. That doesn't mean you stop dreaming. It means you start valuing the process while you're dreaming. The person who practices gratitude wakes up in the morning thankful for another day to try again instead of complaining that yesterday didn't go as planned. They see obstacles as lessons instead of punishments. They understand that even setbacks carry blessings because they often redirect you to something better than what you had in mind. Gratitude turns the ordinary moments into extraordinary reminders that life is not as empty as it sometimes feels. Gratitude also grounds you. In a world that constantly tells you to want more, be more, and do more, it's easy to fall into the trap of never feeling like enough. But when you pause and reflect on the progress you've already made, the lessons you've already learned, and the hurdles you've already overcome, you realize that you are further along than you thought. Gratitude gives you perspective. It stops you from measuring yourself against somebody else's timeline and helps you focus on your own growth. Instead of asking why you're not where you want to be yet, gratitude allows you to see how far you've already come. The power of gratitude is that it attracts more of what you appreciate. When you're constantly complaining, you blind yourself to opportunities because you're too focused on problems. But when you practice gratitude, your eyes open to possibilities you might have missed before. You notice doors you didn't see because your attitude shifts from nothing ever works for me to something good is happening for me. Gratitude doesn't change your circumstances overnight, but it changes the way you move through them, and that change often opens the very doors you've been waiting for. Gratitude also softens your heart. It makes you more compassionate toward others because you start recognizing that everyone is carrying their own struggles. When you're thankful, you stop taking people for granted. You appreciate the small acts of kindness, the words of encouragement, the presence of those who show up for you, and that appreciation builds stronger relationships. Gratitude teaches you that no matter how independent you are, you didn't make it this far alone. Somebody helped you, somebody encouraged you, somebody believed in you. And acknowledging that keeps you humble. Practicing gratitude doesn't require grand gestures. It requires consistency. It can be as simple as writing down 3 things you're thankful for each day, or pausing before bed to reflect on the good moments of the day instead of dwelling only on the bad. It can be saying thank you more often, not just to people, but to God, to life, to the moments that have shaped you. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes, and the more it transforms the way you see your life. Gratitude becomes not just a practice, but a lifestyle. And that lifestyle changes everything about how you carry yourself, how you interact with others, and how you approach the future.